Welcome to the worst movies of 2021. Let's go. Now, when it came to making a best of list, I already had an idea of what my favorite movies were from the year, because, like most people, I actively seek out movies that look good. In order to put together this list, I had to really scrape the bottom of the barrel, and though I'm sure there remain a plethora of terrible movies from 2021 that will go unmentioned, this is the list of films that I saw. I've put these films in order from 10 to 1, but they're all bad in their own special way. Let's start off with some dishonorable mentions. M. Night Shyamalan's new film, Old, is all based on a setup about accelerated aging that we've seen before in episodes of Star Trek and Thundercats.
I'm aging, getting years older. Every minute I'm in this place.
I'm sure in many other places too, so it's not exactly an original idea, but there was care given to the cinematography and the look of the film. The acting goes way over the top in places, and the absurd premise is at least kind of fun. What drops this film from average to below average for me is the ending. It's exactly the ending I didn't want, where they explain everything. I kept saying, as long as it doesn't end like this, it won't be that bad. And then it ended that way anyway. It still narrowly avoids my worst of list. The Tomorrow War is a similar example. It had some fun action, but the comedy and the family drama fell flat, which left me with a below average, shallow movie, yet still somewhat entertaining. Breaking News in Yuba County is a dark comedy about inept criminals starring Allison Janney, Mila Kunis, Awkwafina, Wanda Sykes, Matthew Modine, and Jimmy Simpson, among others. Allison Janney's cheating husband dies, and she reports him missing in order to become locally famous. A series of misunderstandings leads to a body count, but this is nowhere near the level of a film like Fargo. Watching it felt like a waste of my time, but it was a pretty short movie. Gunpowder Milkshake is a cartoonish girl power assassin movie that I found cringe and stupid. There are other shallow action movies on this list that are way worse though. This one is another failed attempt at a female John Wick movie. My final honorable mention goes to the Space Jam movie, which is less of a movie and more of an advertisement for Warner Brothers. Don't you love Game of Thrones? Don't you love The Matrix? Don't you love Harry Potter? Don't you love Batman? We own it all. Most curious was the use of a clip from Casablanca? From the studio that brought you Casablanca, the new Space Jam movie. There are just way too many IPs crammed into this movie needlessly. If the original Space Jam was one of my favorite movies, then the sequel might be on my top 10 worst, but I didn't expect much from this movie. The original combined live action and animation in a satisfying way, but the animation for this one is just lazier. When the original Space Jam came out, I was 12, and Looney Tunes and basketball were two of my favorite things. So maybe children will enjoy this new one? There's actually a really good running gag on the new South Park post-COVID special about how Space Jam 2 is where it all went wrong for society, and it's more of a joke about how the internet reaction to the movie was so hyperbolically negative.
And then, just when it seemed like we'd turned a corner, Space Jam 2 came out, and we all just kind of gave up.
Some people were just mad that a cartoon bunny wasn't as sexy as she was before. In my opinion, there were way worse movies than this, starting with another animated film. Number 10, Earwig and the Witch, is the first 3D film from the legendary Studio Ghibli, and sadly, the animation is boring and lifeless. It's directed by Goro Miyazaki, the son of Hayao Miyazaki, and I'm curious about the future of the company because Goro hasn't had a hit film yet. The animation is just so sad in this one. They couldn't even get a cat licking its butthole right. Also, the music sounds stock and painfully generic, even though 3 of the characters are in a band together. The whole movie is basically this bratty young girl training to be a witch, and it ends without any kind of conclusion. It was based on a children's story that was left unfinished because of the passing of the writer, Diana Wynne Jones, who also wrote Howl's Moving Castle, which is a far superior Ghibli outing. Number 9, Thunder Force, is the new vehicle for Melissa McCarthy's improv comedy, directed by her husband Ben Falcone. And whenever they make a movie together, I think I'm guaranteed to dislike it. The scene where Melissa McCarthy imitates Urkel alone justifies the inclusion of this movie on my worst of list.
Did I do that? Did I do that?
But there's also the Glenn Fry karaoke scene, and the raw chicken eating scenes. I really don't like Thunder Force. I don't think I chuckled more than once this entire movie. It's supposed to be a comedy, but it just feels like a generic, boring superhero movie with some heartwarming family message that doesn't work because the comedy doesn't work, which is the primary purpose of the movie. Instead of making fun of superhero movies, it's just a superhero movie with worse jokes than even the most middling Marvel affair.
Did I do that?
Octavia Spencer is capable of a lot more than this. Number 8, Reminiscence is a sci-fi romance, and one of my biggest gripes with it is the unnecessary voiceover.
The past can haunt a man. Time is no longer a one-way stream. The tank started as an interrogation tool. Years ago, the battles at the border ended, but the battles at home had just begun. Avery's right. Arson, bribery, murder. The whole city's rotten with corruption.
Then the action is lame, the music is forgettable, the writing is bad, the social commentary is heavy-handed, and the ending sucks. Need I say more? Number 7, The Misfits, is brought to us by veteran director Rennie Harlan, who gave us such mediocre action films as Die Hard 2 and Cliffhanger, and the Andrew Dice Clay vehicle The Adventures of Ford Fairlane, which had a so bad it's good quality for me when I was in high school.
Boys in the garage brought my baby back. Booty time, across the USA.
The Misfits is not so bad it's good. It's just a really bad and dated film. An unfunny heist comedy with terribly stereotypical portrayals of people from the Middle East. Pierce Brosnan sort of tries to liven it up a little bit and fails.
Kind of move, Ringo, don't lose interest.
Nick Cannon is always in these really stupid looking disguises.
Right now, she in a church in some shitty Eastern Euro country. That all changed with a bouquet of flowers. That little dude, his name is Wick. Yo, it was like some Matrix style shit.
His character is named Ringo because that's his favorite Beatle, and he gets thrown off stage for singing Yellow Submarine, which is actually a song written by Paul McCartney. Ringo only wrote 2 Beatles songs, Octopus's Garden and Don't Pass Me By. Couldn't they fact check this? Yeah, I know Ringo sang Yellow Submarine, but Octopus's Garden is the obvious go-to Ringo song. This is a movie with fast cars, expensive watches, chicks doing Matrix fighting. It's all incredibly dumb. Number 6, Infinite, is a sci-fi film starring Mark Wahlberg where he can remember all of his past lives, but this is misunderstood as schizophrenia, and he has a hard time getting his life together. Mark Wahlberg seems entirely uninterested in being in this movie. It also has a scene where one of Wahlberg's past selves drives a car up a ramp and then jumps out with a katana. It's the kind of movie that feels like it was written by a teenager. People that go to this movie probably just like to see cars driving fast, guns shooting in slow motion, and explosions, which can make an entertaining movie, but it just doesn't here. The high concept setup is exposition heavy, there's not nearly enough memorable action, and the villain is goofy as hell. In the sci-fi genre, I actually found this worse than Reminiscence. It's like the whole thing just exists so that Mark Wahlberg can fight with a katana, and yet nothing here is quite as badass as it should be. Even more offensive is the fact that this is from a veteran director, Antoine Fuqua, who directed Training Day and The Equalizer. Infinite, however, is infinitely boring.
New technologies have given the Nihilists an opportunity to end all life on Earth. And the race is on.
Number 5, Midnight in the Switchgrass is the most boring serial killer thriller I've seen in a long time. I was hard on the little things for being generic, but at least it had Denzel Washington in it, and Jared Leto was entertaining as the suspect. Midnight in the Switchgrass is the story of a small-town cop with a southern drawl who is looking for a missing girl, and nothing about it is special or unique. The killer is revealed early in the film as a one-note truck driver character who kills while listening to country music. Bruce Willis and Megan Fox are FBI agents, and the only reason they're there is so that Megan Fox can get kidnapped. Colson Baker, or as you may know him, Machine Gun Kelly, is also in this movie as a low-level criminal. Perhaps Megan Fox and MGK are trying to cement their power couple status, but this movie is weak AF. These days, Bruce Willis's inclusion in a movie almost certainly means it will be a failure. The director for this movie, Randall Emmett, produced 3 other movies with Bruce Willis this year alone. Bruce Willis was in 7 movies this year. One of them has a 0% Rotten Tomatoes score. Even though I haven't watched these other movies, let's go ahead and call number 5 any movie with Bruce Willis. Number 4, Vanquish. This action movie starring Ruby Rose and Morgan Freeman is absolutely pathetic. First of all, I can't recall a movie I've seen that uses fades this excessively. It's definitely an element that can place a movie on this list. It's like fade, 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 fade. Then Morgan Freeman is the villain for some reason, and it's the biggest miscasting on this list. Also, the action sucks. The setup is that Morgan Freeman has kidnapped Ruby Rose's daughter, and Ruby Rose is an assassin and must do 5 pickups in one night to get her daughter back. So it's another attempt at a female John Wick with its video game setup, but then each pickup contains almost no action, like maybe 1 or 2 people get bluntly shot in the head, and then it's back to fade, 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 fade. There is a comical explosion at the end, though.
The Coke. The Coke.
No! Number 3, Deadly Illusions, has the setup for a porn, but without any sex. Or it's like a horror movie, but with very little death. It's that age-old trope of the crazy babysitter, like Hand That Rocks the Cradle style. A rich writer who is completely unlikable hires a younger girl to take care of her kids. The babysitter character is so over-the-top crazy right from the start. It's a terrible performance that actually got some good laughs out of me because it was so bad.
I can't believe I'm standing in the home of an actual writer.
The writing is all atrocious, and like Vanquish, this movie uses way too many cheesy fades. One character is found stabbed with scissors, and the husband gets sliced a few times, but that's the horror element of the film. It's trash of the highest quality, and it wasn't even difficult to find, recommended in the thriller category on Netflix as if it was a real movie. This is like straight-to-video garbage from the 90s, but dumped on streaming in 2021. The director Anna Elizabeth James also directed a movie called Sinister Sorority, but retitled Sisters for Life in the same year. I haven't seen it, but I can already tell you it's terrible.
And it's time for you to pay. Are you sure you don't want to reconsider?
Number 2, Karen. Yes, there's a Karen movie, and it's the worst imitation of a Jordan Peele film I can imagine. The social commentary here is laugh out loud funny. It's so on the nose. It literally starts with Karen washing away a Black Lives Matter drawing on the pavement. Her brother is a corrupt cop, and they spend the whole movie trying to frame Karen's new neighbors because they're black. The lead character is so cartoonishly evil that it's hard to take any of this seriously. It looks really low budget, the acting is bad, the writing is bad, but it is unintentionally funny.
She doesn't like black people.
Well, I'm black.
I know, she doesn't like you either.
They are constantly referencing the fact that she's a Karen named Karen, and there's a scene where somebody says, "This is like an SNL skit," and somebody else says, "More like an episode of Black Mirror." But no, this is a lot more like an SNL skit than it is an episode of Black Mirror.
Then we've got pimps and prostitutes. Then you're having black babies, can you imagine?
I think a Karen movie might have been able to work if they had done a more nuanced portrayal of a Karen, like a woman who's mentally unstable and racist, and it's a character study of a shitty, entitled person. This is trying to be a slasher movie where the monster is the neighbor next door who's trying to frame you for a crime you didn't commit. I'd rather just be watching real-life Karen videos. Those are endlessly entertaining.
Yeah. Crazy lady. In case she attacked me and try to say I attacked her. You look at this. Get away from me! Oh, y'all better get this lady!
The Karen movie is not good, It's really bad, but it's not as boring as some of the other movies on this list either. It's like it's so poorly made you can at least laugh at it.
What the hell are you doing, Karen?
Is that any way to speak to a neighbor?
Number 1, music. This is the directorial debut of Sia, and it's a hard fail. It's the story of a young girl on the autism spectrum, although not played by somebody with autism. It's one of the most ridiculous interpretations of autism I've ever seen, and I can't believe that there were other actors in this movie that saw this portrayal and just went with it. Didn't anybody involved with this movie see Tropic Thunder?
Everybody knows you never go full retard. What do you mean?
Thank you, Robert Downey Jr. in blackface. You're right. Nobody said maybe this actor going way over the top is going to be laughably bad and even offensive. Does Sia surround herself with a bunch of yes men?
Is that a Sia wig?
She's actually in the movie as herself, trying to buy drugs, but then the drugs are for people in impoverished countries. It's a humanitarian effort. So the plot is that this woman is a drug addict and has to take in a young autistic girl named Music when her grandmother dies. The drug addict girl falls in love with a really nice guy who has HIV, resulting in a timeless piece of out-of-context dialogue.
Listen, here's the thing. I don't even care about AIDS.
Music always wears her headphones and lives in some kind of nightmare fuel world where everything is a candy-colored music video and there are terrifying dog men dancing around. Then there are the weird scenes where Music is physically restrained. Apparently when she starts freaking out, you have to crush her with your love, as our male lead explains.
You're not hurting her, are you? No, I'm not. I am crushing her with my love.
The protagonist later crushes Music with her love as well. The drug dealer is played by John Ralphio from Parks and Rec, and apparently he can front you a ton of drugs, but if you lose them whilst crushing someone with your love, he'll just be fine with it. He won't send anybody after you. There won't be any repercussions at all. Yeah, Music is an awful movie. It's worse than the other films on this list because it was actually directed by a celebrity with money and fame and connections. So it's much more egregious for it to be this bad. So that's it. Those are the worst movies I saw in 2021. If anybody knows a movie that's worse, let me know and I might get around to watching it because discussing bad movies is usually a lot of fun for me.
Listen, here's the thing. I don't even care about AIDS.